Let me walk you through the things you need to do to get the render in Fusion. First things first, you need to have the vector of just the base of the shape that you're going to extrude in wood. In this case, it's the circle and the hole that you're putting in the circle. Everything else that is part of this file is the engraved component, right? So that's just being burned into the top. The rest of it is just a disc with a circle in it. You'll see over here that unfortunately this only has one layer set up. You always want to make sure, you can make a second layer with the little plus down here. Make sure that you have, with all of your components, right, you have all of the parts that are going to be cut in one layer and all of the parts that are going to be engraved in another layer. So I'm going to blink the engravings and we're going to look here and we're going to look for the two pieces that are the cut layers. Right? Now, you'll notice that when this was below the ellipse over here, it disappeared. What does that tell us? That tells us that both of these have a fill. You remember, if you're going to cut, you can't have a fill. This has to be no fill. So now, and if you're ever not sure, you can always drag this out over here. See how now it's empty, right? Before, I'm going to undo. Before, there was white there, right? We need that to be no fill. Ta-da! Okay, so no fill. There's that. Now, I've moved it around, and I don't know that this is going to fit. No, it went right back where I needed it to, pretty much. Okie dokie. So the parts that are going to be, blink that, and lock that right there. The parts that are going to be engraved, also, because we need to render this in Fusion, you need to make sure that you have black lines, right, with no white. So it's all just black, unclear. With that, I'm going to put that back where we got it from, and do this. You are all set and ready to begin this. Now, the first thing you're going to do is blink the engravings, file, save your AI file as an SVG, okay? And you might want to say, this is the base, okay? SVG file. I'm just going to save this to my desktop. Really, I am. Desktop. Okay. Then, okie doke. Everything's fine. It'll take a moment. Great. Then I'm going to put the engraving back on and turn off that for a moment. And I'm going to drag around all of this. And again, remember, all of this is just black. There's no white in there, right? If we turn the grid on, you can see the grid through all of the graphics, right? Okay, that's another good way to see if you've got any white under there. You can look at with the grid. I'm going to select all of these graphics. Then I'm going to File, Export, and Export As. What we are looking for here is that you're going to export as a ping. Now, this time it's not the base, it's the decal, right? Or the engravings. These are just the pictures that are going to be engraved on it. Make sure you have a ping format here, and when you see export, it should give you this heads up, and it'll look like black on a transparent background. That is exactly what you want, and you want to make sure that this is a 300 pixels per inch. Nice high quality. Hit OK, and now you have two files that you can bring into Fusion. The other thing that you might consider is now would be a good time to bring additional graphics into the Read Class Resources folder, right? So feel free to do that as well. Now that you have the two files, you are going to create your digital render for the catalog. To do that, you are going to make sure that your origin is visible. So over here, origin is visible. It gives you some planes. And you're going to insert an SVG to start with. Is the base of your form. So there is my base. And I'm going to select one of the vertical planes for us to work with. You see that lines up on right here. And if we're looking at it on the right side, this is lining up very nicely. We want to make sure that this is up here on the ground plane. So just about touching the red line here. It's fine if it's hovering a little bit, but we don't want it to cross that line. Okay. Then we're going to say OK. That's all we need to do. Now, what we want to do is select just the part that we want to turn into wood. So if we click here, you can see the blue form. Okay, this is going to work for us. So we can finish the sketch, right? Click on that blue area and then hit the Q key. And that gives us the push-pull, right? The extrude. Then you're going to type in 3 millimeters. And it will be 3 millimeters thick. Okay, there we go. And we can see that we have the ornament right there. Okay, so that's part 1. Part 2, we are now going to render. So we're going to go over to render. We're going to do a couple of things. We're going to go to setup first. Our scene settings, this is really dark, right? So there's a couple things going on. One, you can make it a little bit brighter. Oops, that was a lot brighter. But we're going to go down here to exposure, so the EVs, and we're just going to make that light gray for a minute, so that when we then go back to the appearance to grab the wood texture, right? And when you go looking for your materials, you're going to scroll down to wood or wood solid, the unfinished. Either the oak has I like this texture. So this looks pretty much like the material we'll be using. So you can drop that right on there. If you haven't downloaded it yet, remember you just need to click the little arrow and you can download any of these materials. Like I could grab the ash if I wanted to. See, now I have that downloaded and I could drop the ash right on there. Now, I'm going to minimize appearance. I'm going to go back to setup, scene settings. Okay, and that's white, so that's really bright. I'm going to go back down here to exposure and bring this down until I can see the wood at about the tone that I want, right? That doesn't look too bad. 8.9, 7.6, somewhere in there. Let's try 8. EV. Oh, looks nice. Okay, a little bit bright, a little bit there. I've got the shadow coming around the back. That's this position. Right? When you position that, see how you can make the shadow go anywhere you want, right? We want to see that shadow a little bit. You may decide you like reflections, right? Get the reflections here, that's fine. When you're doing all of this, you can blink the origin again, right? So all we see is the product. Right? So remember, this is for the catalog. Then we can close that. Go back here and blink the origin again. Now, we're going to go back to design for a moment. This looks like the piece of wood. Yay! While you're back in design, we're going to add the decal. Now, you can add a decal in render, but I've run into some trouble with that, so maybe we should just keep it here. This is the decal for the front. And it's going to be like, well, where do you want it? I want it right here, please. Now, here are the controls for this. They're slightly different. This is your make it larger control, that little corner, curvy corner thing. And you can see I don't have it quite lined up. To line it up, we want to move from the center of that box. So the little corner, curvy corner thing will make it larger, smaller. The rounded box will let you move that around, and then you can just make sure that it is all lined up. Okay, so you can see this is what we're going to end up putting in the catalog, but we want to do this from the render screen. We want to make sure that your capture image, if you're using the reflections and all, then we don't want a transparent background necessarily. We can keep the gray. That works out really nicely for this. And we don't need it a very large file. So this is fine. If it needs to be, and actually it could be smaller than that, be fine. Okay. Just gonna do that for a second. You will then want to do an in-canvas render, right? And you want to make sure that this is maybe at a, not a total angle, but a little bit of an angle, so people understand that there's 3 dimensions to that, what's going on. You can see the shadow, right? A little bit of there. Oops. Uh-oh. There we go. Maybe tip a little bit down. Maybe keep it level. All good. You can also zoom in a little bit, because remember, this is what the picture is going to be. So then we go back here and run an in-canvas render and give it a minute so that you can get a slightly higher quality image. And let it go 15 or 20 seconds. It's not too bad. We will wait here so that you can see all of it. And you really do want the speckles in the reflection to get taken care of, all of that sort of thing. Okie dokie. It's 35 seconds. That's not too bad. Then you go over here and you capture image, right? It is not a screenshot. It is capturing the image and saving it. Right? As that PNG file. And then we'll have a lovely picture. Now, the picture it captures is also going to have all this gray, so eventually you have to trim that. I'm going to pause the render here. And then we're going to go over here to the product, and here, and date modified. Here we go. Oh, did I save it to my desktop instead? I perhaps did. Today, there we go, there it is. So you can see that this is the full width of the screen, right? And that's not what we need. So just open that in preview, right? And then to crop that so it'll fit nicely in our catalog, you can have a little bit of the reflection, but we don't want a lot of extra gray space, right? How's that look? And then do Command K to crop in preview. That looks pretty darn good. If you felt you needed some additional adjustments under adjusting color, for example, if I wanted those black lines to show up a little more contrast, I can pull this up and get that to pop just a little bit more, right? So feel free to do that. If you go too far, it just gets a little wacky. But you could control those. You could also, I can bring the highlights up a little bit. Nope. I'm going to move the white point a little bit. There we go. Pop that out. Okay, great. And then you can save that again. And I'll do this crane ornament 2. Okay. And then I'll close that. I'll close that. And we are all good. Okay. So, now, these are the things that we are going to put in our catalog. That we're going to put in our catalog of products here. When we put this into the catalog, we need to say what it is, we need to say how big it is, and we need to say what kinds of customizations you need, right? So make sure that you have all of that thoroughly detailed, because that's where people are going to then come to our order form, right? This is our, look at the live order form. And you can see how we have some directions. We get their name, they click in, they go to our catalog, they pick the one that they want, right? And then they go through and they give us a customization and tell us where they want it delivered. So all in all, these pictures, you can see this one didn't get cropped very well. This one got cropped a little bit better. We want to make sure that we're as consistent as we can be, and we should be okay. Good luck.